Guys. So we're going to go ahead and talk about our next two concepts, markets and prices. So it's kind of a continuation based off of trades. We understand there's buyers and sellers, producers, consumers, supply and demand. Well, how's that all organized and what's that look like? So that's where we're going to go today. All right, so a little bit of background on market. So the market is a way in which economic activities organize between buyers and sellers through their behavior and interaction with one another. Buyers are going to set the demand at various prices. Sellers, on the other hand, are going to set the various supply at various prices. All right, you're talking about producers and consumers interacting with one another. Well, the markets are the way of kind of organizing that all together for anybody to easily understand. They exist solely because buyers and sellers are interacting with one another, and it's kind of just like a universal framework for that interaction. The interaction between buyers and sellers actually helps determine the market price. And then price, as we know, is an allocation strategy. It's helping allocate scarce goods and resources and services efficiently based off of who can buy that good, service, or resource, and who can sell that good, service, or resource. So the key function of the market is actually to try to find the equilibrium price when supply and demand are both in balance. So again, you're talking about like a Goldilocks scenario. What's the best possible outcome for both buyer and seller where everybody's satisfied? The buyer receives the good or service, the seller receives some kind of marginal profit. What's kind of the best efficient outcome for that interaction? Here's the video. Go ahead and watch it. It's the crash course talking about prices and markets in a little bit more detail, and it's a pretty good watch to help explain this more. Don't worry about the practice. We're not in there person to really do it. So let's talk about prices. So we understand prices. We've always known prices in a broad sense. I mean, if you go to 7-Eleven and you want to get a Slurpee, well, it's going to cost you something. There's a price associated with buying that Slurpee. So, well, how do prices work as a concept, though? Well, in a free market economy, prices are used to distribute goods and resources throughout the economy. They play several roles, but probably the biggest three roles you're talking about is a common language for buyers and sellers, an incentive for producers, as well as a signal of economic conditions. So as an incentive, well, price can act as a signal that tells producers and consumers just how to adjust. It's basically a standard measure of value. Prices tell buyers and sellers whether goods are in short supply or readily available. The price system overall is always flexible and free, and allows for a wide diversity of goods and services. Kind of sets kind of the common language for interactions between those buyers and sellers. So as a signal, you're talking about high prices tells producers they should produce more because according to them, the product's in demand. A low price tells producers that, well, maybe a good's being overvalued. On the flip side, high price tells consumers maybe you shouldn't buy this. Maybe you should think about your purchase more carefully. A low price, on the other hand, will tell consumers I should buy more of the product. Kind of goes back to supply and demand. Remember, as consumers, we don't want to buy things for more money than we absolutely have to, versus a producer is going to say, well, I want to sell things at a high price and I want to keep a supply of high priced goods over and over and over again. So price is kind of the rules of engagement with all that. It can really help signal to both producers and consumers whether or not they should be buying more or maybe they should be investing more in a good or service. Prices are also flexible, which means they can be utilized to solve problems of shortage and decrease to solve problems of surplus. Again, you're talking about if there's not enough, if a good or service is scarce, well, you can use price as a way of kind of controlling the supply. Again, if you raise prices, people will be less likely to buy it, and then you can kind of ease some of the worries if something is in shortage. Versus if something is in surplus, you might get rid of it. It will decrease the price, and people will go ahead and buy it fairly easily. And it causes the market to kind of settle at a new equilibrium based off of whether price is high or low. Don't worry so much about real-world analysis. Again, this would have been something we would have done in person, but I just want you guys to understand the concepts of markets and prices in a broad sense. Same thing as this prices practice. We won't worry about that too much. All I want you guys to really focus on is finishing up your trade research project. I'm talking about trade stimulants and trade barriers, and then also make sure you go ahead and answer the attendance question. Friday at noon as well. We'll move on to a new concept next week, get into a new mini project as well. But for markets and prices, just want you to understand the concept overall. So if you have any questions, please let me know. Thank you guys for following along, and as always, hope you're doing okay.